The Sports Source Saturday Kickoff is brought to you by Hearthside Bank and by Madisonville Marine.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. We are here to get you ready for an open date. Tennessee doesn't play today, but we will play today. John Pennington joined by Ryan Callahan from GoVols247.com. Right over here we have John Wilkerson, member of the Vol Network. Of course, we'll be hearing you get a little basketball coming up this afternoon, so we'll be talking about that a little later in this show. We're getting you ready for a little basketball game today. Also, Marlon Walls right over there, VFL. You'll be talking, obviously, a lot of football. We got some recruiting, and we'll finish up with basketball, as I mentioned. Open date for Tennessee. I want to talk about the reaction this week to the loss to Oklahoma. You look at, well, first of all, let me just say this. For this segment of our show, opening segment, brought to you by our friends at Hearthside Bank. Always within reach. You can find them at hearthsidebank.com. 105 years of trust. That is their tradition at Hearthside Bank. In terms of local banking, in terms of personal banking, business banking, they do it all. Hearthside Bank. I can't vouch enough for the quality of these people. Find them at hearthsidebank.com. Okay. Vols fell 33-27 to Oklahoma last week. Tennessee turned it over 3 times, which led to 13 Sooners points. A Sooners team that's now ranked number 11 in the nation, that has a tremendous defense. The Vols opened as a 3.5-point favorite, meaning that Vegas saw them as a half-point better than Oklahoma, if you take a 3-point home field advantage. But the reaction has been, how could you lose to that bunch of stiffs? You never should have lost that game. And there's been a lot of talk of Josh Heupel's ceiling this week. I don't know that he can get you above here. Is this fair discussion or a little bit of an overreaction this week? John Wilkerson, I'll start with you.
Oh, I think there's a lot of everything mixed in, and I think, one, it's fair to question because at this stage of the season, you look where Tennessee's been. You miss out on a golden opportunity to beat Georgia. You have similar things that get in your way down in Tuscaloosa to where you don't really give yourself a chance to win, and then you really could not get out of your own way. You're going up and down the field against a really highly regarded defense, and yet you fail to cash in with no more than 10 points in the first half when you've dominated statistically. Credit Oklahoma, they did to Tennessee what Tennessee has done to other schools, and that was they were very opportunistic. They made big plays to get the ball out of the hands of the offense, and they scored points when they didn't have the football. So I just really think that Oklahoma did everything it had to do to set the stage for quarters 3 and 4 when they simply improved on offense, and Tennessee could not click in the second half the way they did move the ball in the first half. So it is fair to wonder, because at this stage of the season, you can't help but think, well, if not for all these mistakes at Tuscaloosa, if not for all these mistakes in Oklahoma, you go back to Bill Parcells, and you are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
And so Tennessee is a team right now that struggles to play a complete game. And unless they do, you can't really expect them to. So I just think that, yeah, Tennessee's right now about where it should be, because it hasn't earned anything beyond what it is, and that's a 6-3 team.
They're about where I expected them to be. I said before the season 8-4. I think that's probably looking likely now. I know there's some people 7-5's on the table, no question. Of course, when I made my 8-4 prediction, that was I didn't know you wouldn't be without your 2 starting corners. Yeah. But this team's kind of where I thought it would be. I don't think Oklahoma was some horrible loss in the terms of you didn't lose to UAB out there. Mm-hmm. I thought that was an evenly matched team. I would have taken Oklahoma to win if that game had been played in Norman. I said that last week on our pregame show. However, no question, disappointing. But do you blame a coaching staff because you turned the ball over 3 times in that one? Right. Do you blame a coaching staff because a kicker misses a chip shot against Georgia or you beat Georgia? There's no ifs or buts about that one. Hit the kick, you win, it's over. Yeah. So it's like, I agree with John here. Questions, legitimate. Fire these guys, I don't know if they're the ones to do it. I think that's a little too far for me.
It's premature at the very least. But here's where fans are coming from. They've seen better from Josh Heupel teams already. So to see them in year 5 not doing things that they've done in the past makes it hard to accept that this is the best you can do, or that the outlook for next year might not be any better than this year, things like that. They expect year 5 to look better than year 2. And unfortunately for Josh Heupel, year 2 was really good. So I think that's where it comes from, is that you've seen Josh Heupel teams do better, and now they're doing some things they weren't doing before. And you're not playing at the same tempo you were early, so it's harder to accept that your offense is not consistently scoring points against some SEC teams the way they were early in the season. So it's just and it's the fact that you're just losing close games. When fans see you lose close games, especially at home, and it's happened twice this season now.
Fans just don't want to see you lose, period.
They don't.
Losses are no longer acceptable. You can't have an acceptable loss.
Well,
There's no such thing.
If it's a game you are favored to win or that you have a realistic shot to win and you lose a close game at home, fans are going to think you did something that you shouldn't have done that cost you the game. So fair or not, that's just the reality.
No, it is the reality. And you're right that fans expect year 5 will look better than year 2 and year 6 will look better than year 5. The problem is, what school does that happen at? I could tell you Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. There aren't a lot that don't do this, because especially in the transfer portal era. However, you're right. That is the perception that it's year 5. You're not supposed to have any holes on this roster. It's like it's 1997 instead of 2025.
Well, and I'll tell you also what people are looking at. They're looking at next year's schedule and what a 16-team SEC is going to mean for Tennessee long term.
Georgia Tech on top of it.
Yeah. And they're saying, how's this going to get better? If this is what it looks like in year 5, how is next year going to be any better, and how is it going to be better going forward with a tough, deep SEC?
Yeah, which you could also flip that one. And again, my role on this show is to be devil's advocate. So I push back on the stuff I throw out. But we do ask, how's it supposed to be any better? Just as you don't know that year 5 automatically means you're going to be better than year 4, there's nothing to say year 6 isn't automatically going to be a big jump over year 5. You don't know.
Right.
Because if you go out and hit the portal and find the right guys, you may be better off next year.
Or if George McIntyre or Faison Brandon's great at quarterback. There's so many possibilities.
You may be. I mean, who knows? Marlon, is this overreaction or legitimate concerns at this point for you?
I think a bit of an overreaction. But I've always said that, like, Josh Heupel is a victim of his own success. The fact that we jumped out like we did, nobody expected what he did in year 1 to turn that team around. Where we're exciting, we're electric, we're scoring a lot of points. And then year 2, you're looking at, we're putting up 40-some points in the first half. And so, like, what happened was we got that expectation of, okay, this is what we're going to get. Yeah. We're going to get better at this. And then you have the 2 defensive years where it's like, all right, instead of winning with offense, we got to win with defense. Well, now we look at it on paper now, and it's like, all right, your offense is much better than your defense. Where are the points? Where's the electricity? Where's the late game management that we've messed up some? And so that, yes, the questions are there. But I've always said as well, like, he's a really good coach. He's proven that over the last 5 seasons, the way he's won in different ways. But now it's okay, what changes do we have to make in order to make the next jump where we're expected to be, again, one of those top-tier programs in the country? And so, like, now, from a recruiting standpoint, that's one of your big things. From your coaching staff standpoint, all right, what guys are we moving in to now get this offense back in shape, get the defense back in shape? So that's the question.
And the other question is, if you're Josh Heupel looking at this, we keep saying we did this on the Final Word on Monday, and we're there asking questions about the offense and what about this and what about that. And VFL Daniel Hood said, well, this offense is averaging about 45 points a game.
Yeah.
Which, granted, now you factor in the ETSU, but even in conference games, you're averaging 35 points a game.
Yeah.
So my question then, I agree with you. But would Josh Heupel agree with you? I wonder if he looks at it and says, fix the defense. Get rid of guys, change out my staff. What are you talking about? We're number 1 or number 2 in scoring in the SEC. That's the question.
Here's my reflection of the season. This offseason, I didn't think we was going to be very good. Just looking at us on paper, a lot of guys moving into new positions or they're starting now we haven't seen before. You got a brand new quarterback that you just picked up in the summer. All right, I'm not expecting much. But when I saw that Syracuse game, and you saw the offense look really good, then you follow that up with Georgia and we look really good, it's like, all right, we can have the same expectations, or those expectations should change. And then now you see us starting to hit
it's more like what we thought to begin with.
Yeah, right. And it's like, that's hard to accept from a fan standpoint. I am a fan, a former player, but I watch. I'm a fan. Yep. And it's like, all right, where's the explosion? Where was that in the first couple games? I mean, we put up 38 points, 41 points versus Georgia, who's supposed to be one of the best defenses in the country. So that's where those expectations are coming from. You saw it, and it looked better than what you expected. And so now you change your prediction on it.
John, you want to wrap us up here?
Well, time and time again, it's kind of like you can go into a season and think that you've got just middle-of-the-road expectations, but then they show you something at the start of the season, and it's like, just as Marlon said, I'm on board with this team. I think they have the chance to do this, and then some of those warts return to the surface, and it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm upset now because I started the year with this expectation. Yep. They made me think this. So that's why you get upset. It's like I was fine until they gave me the notion that, like, hey, 10-2, we might be right back where we were.
That's exactly right. I think the offensive line to me is a perfect example of that from my perspective. I went in saying, you're replacing 4 starters. I don't know about your depth. One of your guys is a complete rookie. This is going to be a questionable offensive line. Then the first month you're sitting there going, oh, I was wrong. This offensive line's great. Deeper you get into SEC play, and now people have seen your new offense that you trotted out, and now they're counteracting that. They're reacting to what you've got. And it's like, oh, they're doing that now? Well, we'll do this on defense. And suddenly the offensive line, you're like, those guys aren't as good as they were. Why? Well, it's because I got my expectations jacked up a little too much. So, all right, good point. When we come back, if there are people grumbling now, what happens if Tennessee loses 1 more game or 2 more games? We'll talk about the importance of the final 3 games for Josh Heupel when we come back on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. Welcome back into the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. This segment of our show is brought to you by Games and Things. It is their 45th anniversary sale going on right now. 20 to 50% off everything in their store. You can find it at ourgameroom.com. A lot of you, if you're in Nashville, if you're watching this on the Sports Source Digital Network, you can still get to Games and Things, which is located in Knoxville, but you can find them at ourgameroom.com, and you can get things 20 to 50% off, just like this poker table, shuffleboard table, dart board, that Papa shot from basketball, all came from Games and Things. Jukebox, they got it all. Games and Things. 45th anniversary sale. Talk to them this week. Okay. Vols have 3 games left. New Mexico State. Ugh, how boring. Then a trip to Gainesville. Then Vanderbilt and Diego Pavia and his mouth here in Knoxville. Toss in the fact that UT is a banged-up football team. Toss in the fact that all I keep hearing is the season's over. There's nothing left to play for, which means you had some guys, Colton Hood, Aaron Carter, they played hurt this past week. Give them a lot of credit. But if you're to the end of the season and you don't have a playoff berth going, how many guys who are banged up say, Coach, I don't know that I can go this week? I don't know. May happen, may not. Marlon, you throw all that together and the importance of these games, because people are mad now. Let them lose to Florida again or Vanderbilt. This is setting up as one of Josh Heupel's biggest challenges here at the end of this season.
Most definitely, I agree with you because, man, it's tough right now as a coach because I've never heard bowl games be diminished as much as they are right now. When I was in this situation, we're kind of figuring out, okay, where can we go? All right, hey, we win this game, we can end up in Florida somewhere. Hey, we win this. But Tennessee is like, again, and I say this, Heupel is a victim of his own success. That team's been there already. We've been to the playoff. We've won bowl games in Florida. So, yeah, that is the toughest challenge. And then now you've got another aspect of you got kids that got agents in the locker rooms, right? And so now you got situations where, hey, you're not healthy. Hey, we're grading out as this, or we want to really start preparing for next year. Let's hold back right now. So, yeah, this is going to be one of the biggest challenges, and I think now you're going to figure out what kind of leader Josh Heupel is. Yeah. Because when you lose football games and the playoff is all that matter, and this team knows they're out of the playoff right now, that starts to creep into your locker room, if you allow it. If your leadership isn't strong, or if your head coach isn't a great leader as far as keeping that stuff out of there, you'll start to see that show up in your locker room. So I think we figure out a lot about Josh Heupel and how he runs his football team here this next couple of weeks.
Will be interesting to see, simply for the fact that one of the things that has been a strong characteristic is now you do have those teams where everybody says the exact same words that the head coach says, and the head coach is the only one you hear from. But what you see with this team is that it sounds like the head coach, the assistant coaches, and all the different players you get to hear from, they all talk similarly without saying the same exact phrases. So I do think you have what you can't help but feel is a good culture, but this is going to put a challenge to it because it seems like they have strong leadership from within, and they need to say, we need to win just for us, and because that's what they've got. This, for some guys, it's the last time they'll suit up with the guy to their left or right, and so this is why you hope to rely on your culture that we've heard so much about. If it is strong, then I think Tennessee will get out there and compete. Doesn't guarantee a thing, but I do think it has a chance to perhaps just maybe take a little bit of a different path from what it looks like.
And he's never had a team that's gone off the rails in terms of losing, getting on a big losing streak at the end of the year. So again, this is a new deal in terms of there's nothing really out there. In the past, you've had something to continue to play for. In the past, you didn't have the 12-team playoff to where it made it feel like the regular season is just meaningless now. If you're not in the playoff, it's useless. You've turned it into college basketball is what you've done. You've ruined the regular season, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he has never had one of these where there's nothing to play for and you lose 3 of your last 4. It's a challenge this time, though.
It is a challenge, and I think John went exactly where I was going with it, though. I think the fact that you have this culture and your program's built around it, everything you do has been aimed at having a culture that can withstand this kind of challenge. I think that gives them a better chance than a lot of teams of surviving this and still playing well down the stretch. Now, again, even playing well, are they good enough to go on the road and win at Florida? Are they good enough at home to beat Vanderbilt? If they lose, it might not be because they weren't interested.
That's true. In a league where everybody's about this much, there's this much difference between 10 of the 16 teams, probably more than that.
Yeah. Now, and we've had fans on our message board this week have been even thrown out there, hey, should you play the young guys? Should you just throw George McIntyre in there at quarterback and just
hold off
transition?
on that. We may.
I mean, I get where they're coming from, but I said, here's the thing: 7-5 versus 9-3 is a massive difference for this program.
And for Josh Heupel specifically.
For Josh Heupel, for the perception of the program, where it's headed, everything.
Recruiting.
So yeah, absolutely for recruiting, for the transfer portal even. I mean, there's so many ramifications of that yes, these last 3 games matter. And to that point, one thing I think people are maybe overlooking about this. Players still have a lot to play for individually, too. Colton Hood, Arion Carter, anybody like that has any thoughts of going to the NFL draft, you want to put out good film to end the season to help your draft stock. So even and young guys like David Sanders, he's still getting better. He needs to play these last 3 games. So you've got plenty of guys on this team motivated to finish the season well.
Your draft stock or your free agent period this offseason.
Either way.
Because here's the thing, even if you guys got guys who want to stay at Tennessee, that doesn't mean their agent isn't going to say, but we can go flirt with USC and get more money out of Tennessee.
Yeah.
So you want good tape.
Yeah, and there's the other side to the coin. Remember, it was last year, Rick Barnes said specifically when there were a couple of bad games, or I should say struggling games for Chaz Lanier back-to-back, it's like, we're paying him to do this. We brought him here to do this.
Yeah, he did.
And there's that aspect from the Tennessee side that's like, look, your client, we have given him this much money. We expect this kind of performance.
Especially in the revenue share area. It'll be interesting to see how these deals are cut moving forward because NIL, firstly, when it started, it was just the player has all the power.
Right.
But some of that start to shift to where, we'll pay you, but you've got to hold up your end of the bargain a little bit better than someone, say, like a Niamali Ava, who takes their money and leaves. The interesting thing about this last series, these last 3 games, it's slightly noisy now. I think the majority of the fan base is still firmly behind Heupel. You've got the hotheads. But if you do lose to Florida, which to me, I predicted that going into the season, I will never pick them to win it games because they just don't. But if you lose to Vanderbilt, that's the one that's going to tick people off because Vanderbilt could go to the playoff after that. More than likely, if they beat you, they should be they should have the same number of losses coming in. They got Auburn and Kentucky. They should come in here as a 2-loss team looking at the playoff. Yeah. And if they beat you to get to a playoff, and Diego Pavia goes out and slams the Vanderbilt flag in the middle of the 50-yard line, which he's the kind of guy that would do it, it will be a very, very noisy offseason for Josh Heupel. All right, when we come back, let's take a look ahead. That's why I stopped you. Let's take a look at next year's quarterback situation at Tennessee. Should they start playing the young guys? We'll take his question and go in the future. We'll play it forward. That's next on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. Welcome back to Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. This segment of our program is brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Daniel's a VFL, and if you need roof repair, roof cleaning, roof replacement, anywhere in the Knoxville area or the Nashville area, DanielHood.net is where you need to go to learn more. Daniel Hood Roofing. All right, back with Ryan Callahan, John Wilkerson, VFL Marlin Walls. Saw someone post it, and this is why I stopped you. On a message board last week, we used it in our Sunday show. They said, okay, now that the season's over, no reason to play Aguilar anymore. Go ahead and ride with Merklinger. I don't know that Merklinger is going to be the guy you're riding with, but let's say McIntyre. They're not going to do this for the reason you said in that last segment. It's important to finish strong. But there is a certain logic there. Why not go ahead and prepare for next year since fans are out on this year? Like they'll give them a pass for doing that. Where are you, though? You're going to have a true freshman who's a hot shot in Faison Brandon, one of the top recruits in the country, if not the. Is he still number one quarterback?
He
still
is
number one?
in our rankings.
In 24/7's rankings. All right.
The only ones that matter.
That's right. Don't look elsewhere. So Faison Brandon coming in. You've got George McIntyre, who looked good this offseason, looked good in the preseason. He shows some talent. Merklinger, don't know if he'll be back or not, but he's certainly a possibility. Or you could go get someone out of the portal. And, that's a dice roll too. I'll remind everyone, Joe Milton, who you won 8 games with Joe. But you could go find somebody like a Joey Aguilar who has lit it up for Heupel's offense. Ryan Callahan, you cover recruiting. I'm going to ask you, though, we're going to put your coaching hat on. What would you do? What would you do? Just ride with Brandon and McIntyre and Merklinger, or would you go look in the portal?
I would go into the offseason thinking that it's probably going to be George McIntyre or Faison Brandon, but here's the problem. I think Jake Merklinger, there's a real chance he does leave. I think he sees the writing on the wall, knows that the pedigree of McIntyre and Brandon gives them an inside track for that job, and he knows it didn't go well for him in August when he was battling Joey Aguilar for the starting job. So I think there's enough there for him. Ideally, he'd get to leave after spring practice, but he's got to make that call in January without going through spring ball. I think he might end up deciding to leave. If he does, I've got to have 3 scholarship quarterbacks. I don't want to take the chance on just 2 guys, and young guys at that, being my only options. And if you get 2 injuries, you're suddenly playing a walk-on. That's not a good situation.
Yeah.
So I'd want to go get a guy. I think what I would do is similar to what Ole Miss has done at times. They've taken a couple quarterbacks sometimes in the same offseason when they have a job opening. Go get a guy and let him compete. Go get an FCS quarterback who's maybe got a shot to make the jump. Could be pretty interesting. Don't get a guy that you're thinking is going to win the job, but get someone who can at least push your young guys.
Or that you're going to throw big money at.
Yes. And so you don't want to break the bank, but you also don't want to leave yourself with no options. That's probably what I would do. Kind of play it down the middle. Play somebody or throw somebody in there who's capable of winning the job if he really showed out, but also someone that I don't think really has as much talent as McIntyre or Brandon, and let them battle it out and go with the best guy. And if one of them – but you also want to be a guy that's transferring in with 1 year of eligibility left. You do not want a guy coming in as a sophomore who wins the job and suddenly Faison Brandon and George McIntyre are both out the door. You can't have that.
You've got Texas, LSU, Alabama on the schedule next year coming here. You got Georgia Tech on the road early in the season. It's going to be an important year for Josh Heupel because you're going to have murmurs this offseason. Even if they win the last 2 games, you're going to have some people still going back saying 3 losses, not good enough. So if you're going into next year, Marlon and John, you want to have a veteran quarterback there, or do you feel more comfortable just saying, no, let's ride with the young guys?
It's
tough.
It's tough because you look at Josh Heupel's years of success, or what the fans name of success. You've got Hooker, and you've got now Joey Aguilar. The years that we didn't, or I would say one of the years that we had a lot of hype in was the Nico Imali. We thought he was going to come in and light it up. Look.
And he was a second-year guy.
Yeah. Second-year guy, but it
hadn't played, yes.
It didn't look right.
Right.
And also, we saw the offense. It looked like Heupel wasn't back to what he normally wanted to do. We had questions there, and it looked like now that the issue was Nico. So it's a tough call, but at the same time, man, it's hard to turn down young talent. It just really is, and it's someone that you can grow in your program. But I will say this. If you look at the SEC and the amount of coaches that's being fired right now, you're talking about a coach in James Franklin who just was in the playoff a year ago and won a game in the playoff.
Was in the semifinals?
Yeah. And is out of there now because the season didn't start the way he wanted to. I think that's a lot for Josh Heupel to kind of take in. I don't get paid what he get paid, so I'm gonna let him make that decision.
All right, let's see if John will answer this one. If it's you, are you going to ride with a veteran? Are you going to try and find a veteran, or are you going to ride with a young kid, one of these guys who's never started a game in college before?
I like Ryan's approach. I do think that you look for the guy that's going to push who you've got on your roster. And I do think, I think you can be served by youth. Granted, there's no substitute for experience. But I do think that they are so over the moon about what Faison Brandon brings to the table that I think they're rightly excited about it. And every now and then you just got to say, my team's on the field, push your chips to the middle of the table. But I do like that you do have to have at least 3 guys.
Yeah.
And I will say this, the one thing that I like, and I think Coach Heupel was kind of alluding to this, you've got guys that have worked the last couple of years to put themselves in a position to start right here, right now. And if there are younger players that haven't matched their investment in terms of what they're doing to get ready for the game, I'm like him. You don't bring in a young guy because they haven't earned it yet. That's why I think it's not a wholesale change and a line substitution where you just bring in all the young guys, because the veterans that are out there right now, seems like they've earned it and they've shown that.
Well, let me tell you the flip side of this. They've got a ton of resources invested in McIntyre and Brandon. The logic of this is you don't invest that many resources in guys that you're not playing. So the odds are it's going to be one of them. My bet would be McIntyre is the early favorite to win the job next year because he's going to have a leg up in terms of experience. And he was good in August.
And he's been in the weight room.
Yeah.
He'll have been in the weight room for a year, which he'll have up on Brandon. But it is interesting going forward. And Joe Milton is the odd one out here because that was a transfer guy that he was good. It just didn't work out like you thought. But would you be better moving forward investing your money in transfer guys, veterans, as opposed to young guys who are you're going to have to pay them for a year or two, because you may be paying Brandon to sit behind McIntyre for a year or two. Okay. When we come back, Ryan Callahan is going to give us a full recruiting update. We got 5 names for you to watch. That's next on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. Welcome back to the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. John Pennington once again joined by Ryan Callahan of GoVols247.com, where you cover a lot of things, but you target in on recruiting. And we've moved across the studio here to our wipey board set, so you could put 5 names on the board. I ask you to come up with 5 names that Vol fans should be following, but there are a lot of names, more than 5, that are out there, more than usual.
Yeah, it's a pretty active cycle, and part of that because of coaching changes, I think, partly because schools are just looking to add whatever quality players are still out there and still might have needs, and also SEC teams anticipating going to 105 scholarship players in the near future. So you got more flexibility to add guys at any position you might want to address. But yeah, definitely beyond these 5 guys, Tennessee's list of targets, and some of these guys are flip targets, guys committed to other schools. So offensive lineman Micah Smith, committed to UCLA right now, took an official visit to Tennessee last weekend for the Oklahoma game. Major priority for Tennessee, a guy they targeted even before he picked UCLA back in the late spring, but Tennessee gets him back on campus. Ohio State and Ole Miss have already hosted him on official visits too, so Tennessee one of a few, at least, serious contenders in this one, in addition to UCLA, where they're waiting to see who the new coach will be. So don't think he's likely to end up at UCLA, but he has not decommitted from them officially. So Tennessee, it sounds like, has a real shot at him going into the final weeks here, but we'll see if he takes any additional visits. He didn't comment after the visit, so not sure what he's thinking right now, but certainly Tennessee, I think, some cautious optimism, at least on Tennessee's front, coming off that visit.
A lot closer to Vero Beach here than UCLA is.
Yeah.
So, okay, what do you got second?
Edge rusher Jordan Carter. This is a relatively new name. Even if you track recruiting, you might not know until last weekend that Tennessee was in the mix for Jordan Carter, but 4-star prospect, ranked just outside the top 100 on 24/7 Sports, was committed to Texas A&M for more than a year. Decommits from Texas A&M last weekend. That day shows up at Tennessee for the Oklahoma game. So now Tennessee will get an official visit, it sounds like, next weekend for the New Mexico State game. He's also going to take official visits to Georgia Tech, and that might be the team to watch here, and Auburn, which obviously just had a coaching change, so who knows if that visit even happens now. Auburn had some momentum before he decommitted. Now that may be out the window with Hugh Freeze gone. But Georgia Tech making a hometown play here on an Atlanta area kid. Sounds like they're making a serious push, so may come down to Tennessee and Georgia Tech in the end. Texas also among his finalists, but have not heard of a visit being scheduled there. So Tennessee has a real shot there, and we'll see what that official visit next weekend can do.
Before we get to number 3, you mentioned people in town for the Tennessee-Oklahoma game last weekend. That could go either way. There are people who are like, oh, great, they're in and we lost. Most of these kids aren't sitting there hanging on whether or not you win or lose. They're looking at the facilities, they're looking at the dark mode, atmosphere and everything else, and the fan support, meeting the coaches. Really, the win or loss thing, people shouldn't freak out over that one in terms of having somebody in when you win or loss. Hell, it may tell a kid that we got need for you.
Right. To your point, most kids aren't looking at that one way or the other, and it's not a big deal at all. And even if you get blown out sometimes, it's not a big deal because, to your point, you can always sell playing time, and, hey, there's an opportunity for you to step in right away. So, Tennessee got nothing but positive reviews from that visit. The dark mode played really well. And for that matter, thought this was really interesting. A couple recruits mentioned unprompted, they think Tennessee's got a lot of stability. And in this era with all these SEC schools going through coaching changes, Tennessee's perceived stability seems to be working in their favor.
That's good. All right, number 3 on your list.
Another guy Tennessee's been recruiting for a long time, committed to another school, Wisconsin running back commitment, Amari Latimer, another Atlanta area kid. Ohio State also involved here. Miami also involved. So some heavy hitters in this one, but Tennessee still looking for a running back in this 2026 class. Finally got him back on campus for the first time in more than a year this past weekend. That was an official visit. Another guy didn't comment, hasn't said much publicly lately, so not sure exactly what he's thinking. This one I think might be a little bit more of an uphill battle for Tennessee because you've got Ohio State and Miami also in there.
Right.
But Tennessee's done a nice job and at least got him back on campus, so we'll see where that one goes. They're kind of all in on Amari Latimer at this point at running back. They don't really have anyone else on the board right now. We'll see if anyone else surfaces here down the stretch. Maybe a coaching change opens another opportunity, but at running back it may be Amari Latimer or bust, and then if you don't get someone, maybe going back to the transfer portal for another Star Thomas type player.
Gotcha. Who's next?
Jalen Thomas, defensive lineman, a junior college prospect. We don't see as many of those these days, but you still see them sometimes, and defensive line tends to be the position where Tennessee has looked, and a lot of other teams do. But a Memphis kid now at a Mississippi junior college, took an official visit to Kansas last weekend. Stock still seems to be rising a bit, but Tennessee, the only SEC school currently heavily involved. He's taking an official visit to Tennessee as of right now for the Vanderbilt game at the end of the month, so that would give them the final visit before early signing day. Sets up pretty well for Tennessee, but this is the kind of recruiting battle that can be tricky. You never know. You might think, Kansas, a school like that, not likely to beat out Tennessee. That's where NIL/revenue sharing can come into play.
About to say that.
A school like Kansas might be able to devote more resources to a player like that might be, a solid player that Tennessee wants, but maybe not willing to devote $500,000 or $750,000 to. So you just never know how that's, and I'm just throwing out a random number,
Right.
But yeah, that's how those can work. So you can't necessarily just write off Kansas because Tennessee's seen as a better program. So it could be a trickier recruitment because Tennessee's not battling other SEC schools.
Yeah, it's going to take a while for media and for fans to get it around their head that for the past few years it's been on NIL, so it's the big boys can throw big dollars.
Yeah.
Now with revenue sharing, there's a cap on this stuff in terms of what now there may be NIL on top of everything else, but you've got the revenue share, which means you've only got $21 million to split out. Whereas Kansas can sit there and go, we're not spending as much as Tennessee is, so we can focus it on one kid and go get, and they can outbid Tennessee for one kid.
Yep.
We've talked about this before on the Sports Source Digital Network that now all of a sudden smaller schools, it actually gets them in the game because the revenue sharing can be a limiter for some of the big guys.
It raised the amount of money they can spend in most cases. These programs
the little
didn't,
guys.
they didn't have $10 million a year or whatever to throw around at players. Now they do, and they've got to spend it somewhere, so they might as well go get somebody that an SEC school might want.
Last one, quickly.
Yeah, Legend Bay. Now, this one's a Tennessee commitment, but one really worth watching. Took a visit to Ohio State last weekend. It sounds like the Buckeyes have made a serious play here. Tennessee was recruiting him as a wide receiver. Ohio State sees him. He's a quarterback, really dynamic quarterback. Ohio State sees him as kind of a running back / receiver, a guy that can move around, play a little bit of everywhere. So Ohio State, I mentioned, also recruiting Amari Latimer. So it could be a backup plan for Latimer at running back, but also it sounds like if they could get both, they're willing to take both. So we'll see how that goes down the stretch, but Ohio State seriously involved there and definitely a threat to Tennessee for Legend Bay. So if that were to be a flip that actually happens down the stretch, could hurt Tennessee's receiver class, which is right now one of the strengths of Tennessee's class. Excellent.
When we come back on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff, we've got some recruiting numbers to show you. Is this current staff elite? They're good. Are they great at recruiting? We'll discuss that next. Come on back on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. Welcome back to the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. This segment of our program brought to you by Madisonville Marine. People drive from all over the South to take advantage of their selection, their prices. Visit madmarine.com or head to Highway 411 North in Madisonville. There's no better place to buy a boat. All right, take a look at the numbers I've got on screen for you right now. I used the recruiting rankings from 247sports.com. In salute to Ryan Callahan here. These are the numbers from 2022 through 2026. So that takes out Heupel's first class when he was trying to rebuild it and he just arrived and they had all these guys leaving. So it's the last 5 years. It also includes the current rankings, or the rankings from earlier this week. So it's not finished, this last class is. But I only looked at the top 15 teams each year. And what's interesting to me is there's only been 21 schools. So basically your top 15 every year is pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. You've got these same groups. This does not include the portal. This is high school classes only. Tennessee has finished 17th, 10th, 14th, 11th, and now they're 8th. That puts them 12th on average over the last 5 years, behind Georgia, Alabama, Texas, LSU, Texas A&M, and the SEC. That's good. It's very good. Be top 12. But does it mean this is an elite recruiting staff? No one wants this question, so I'll go to you first.
I've always said that we've got to be better recruiting. I don't think it takes a whole lot of science to look out there versus certain opponents, and you realize, man, we are way behind. And I think we're getting closer to that.
Close the gap, but
getting
still
closer.
behind. Yeah.
But I think when you're talking about winning national championships, you've got to have a roster full of those blue chip guys. And so that's always been a question of mine, of something that we've got to, even in 22, I was thinking we've got to take advantage of that kind of season in the recruiting era. And so I think that's one of the areas for sure a lot of people are going to be looking around and saying, go get those guys that can help improve us and get us out of the 12th spot on average year to year.
You consider this an elite recruiting staff, John?
I don't know about elite. I will say this, but I think they do well. And it comes down to, for the blue chippers, these days it's kind of like it's got to be as much about a bond as it is a bank account. But what I think they do well is they identify guys that are going to develop while they're finishing high school and will be able to come in and compete. Because you can't pay every member of your signing class. You can't give them all the world because you only have so much to work with. But I do think they're really good at identifying guys that can compete. And then I think they build a strong enough bond with those guys that are going to be the glue guys. I think they're good at identifying players like that. They're going to be in the running for the blue chippers, and if they can get everybody across the finish line and the finances work out, that'll be A-okay. But I think they're really good at identifying talent and building bonds.
I'm with Marlon. I've said for a while that my concern isn't with the coaching, and I'm in on Heupel as a coach. He's won in different ways. He's won with offense. He's won with defense. Now he's changed his offense again because other guys came up with a antidote for his offense, so he changed his offense. So I think he's a pretty good coach, and as much as we talk about clock management, he's won an awful lot of games at the end of the game. I mean, Alabama, a couple of times you could think of it, they played the clock just right. My issue isn't there, and I know people are going to play that back if they finish 7-5. I'm still in on the coaching. My issue is if you're always the underdog against Georgia and Alabama and Texas next year, it's because of the recruiting thing. So improve the recruiting thing. That's where I think it is, and I don't consider that. I think they're a good staff. I don't think they're an elite staff. I think you need to occasionally go outside, hire some new blood, and I don't know that this is a head coach who targets. If you lose a receivers coach, for example, you can either promote from within, or you can go outside and get another receiving coach, or you could say, I'm getting a so-so receiving coach, but he's the best recruiter in the SEC. Somewhere on your staff, you need somebody where you go, that's one of the best recruiters in the SEC. I don't know that they have that.
See, I two different thoughts on this. One, I think what I would do is I would want a staff that evaluates at an elite level as opposed to recruiting at an elite level. Because in this era, I don't think recruiting ability has mattered less than it does right now because everything comes down to money and your ability to get players to the NFL.
And I guess I'm including the evaluation as part of the recruiting. I was going to say, I guess obviously that if you're signing the right guys,
well, but sometimes the right guy might be a 3-star instead of a 5-star, and that's the part some fans have to realize is sometimes the 5-star might be a guy that you think has no competitive character, has a terrible attitude, and might be a terrible locker room guy. So there are multiple aspects to that, and I think they've gotten most of them right, but they've got to continue to do well and spend their money in the right places. If you're doing that, you're going to be competitive at a place like Tennessee. The other issue is, we've talked about this in the past, you've got to get guys. If you don't have a reputation as being an NFL program, a place that puts players in the NFL at a high rate every single year, there just aren't many shortcuts in recruiting, no matter how good your recruiters are. And I think that's kind of where Tennessee is. They've got to break through to get to that perception of a Georgia or an Alabama to get there, and there's really no way around it.
I guess I just need to see a high-end class at some point. You look here at the top dogs. Georgia's had a number 1, number 2, number 2, number 2, number 3. Alabama's had a number 1. Texas topped out with a number 1 class. Ohio State has had 3 number 4 classes. Oregon topped out with a number 3 class. Notre Dame a number 4 class. LSU a number 5 class. Texas A&M a number 1 class. Your highest so far is this year a number 8 class. Again, I see what you're saying that you got to evaluate, but you could make the case that, well, Georgia and Alabama have just been signing the best players. They didn't need to. And I guess their evaluation was good too.
Well, they're known as NFL programs. LSU known as an NFL program. Texas getting that reputation. Ohio State certainly has that.
Well,
so
be that.
So
you've got to.
And it takes time. It just does. I mean, Tennessee's, I think, getting there, but they've got to have more first-round picks, more household names in the NFL.
Granted, I'm going to continue to push back on my side of it. There is no right or wrong here.
Yeah.
But I just think in terms of recruiting, one of the ways you become an NFL program Go get guys who are 5-star recruits. Georgia recruits a lot of guys who you look at when they come into Georgia and you say, that guy's going to be an NFL guy. I don't know how many guys Tennessee is signing right now that you go, oh, there's a future NFL guy. You're getting some, but, I mean, Mike Matthews, was that one of them? Okay. Compared to Ryan Williams,
See,
there's a difference there.
It's a game of inches. I think that, like, what the things Tennessee's got to be good at, you've got to offer the in-state kid early so that you can save $150,000 on his salary down the road. Those are the kinds of things that's going to determine whether Tennessee's great or not in the long run.
Gotcha. When we come back, let's talk about Tennessee basketball. They got a game this afternoon. Come on back on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. Welcome back to the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. This segment of our show brought to you by Rusty Wallace Kia of Knoxville on Callahan Drive. Jake Bull and his crew will beat any offer on any new Kia from anywhere, period. That's a pretty good deal. If you're spending money on a new Kia and you're not getting it at Rusty Wallace Kia of Knoxville, you're spending too much money. Rusty Wallace Kia of Knoxville on Ryan Callahan Drive. Ryan Callahan, Marlon Walls, back with John Wilkerson here. I want to talk Tennessee basketball. Vols are 1-0 coming off a big victory over Mercer this week, and now they got the Northern Kentucky Norse coming in. I was going to say Norseman, but it's the Norse.
It is.
Forgotten. Northern Kentucky comes in here. It's not about the opponent. It's about the team and seeing what the rotations are and seeing the talent. Your thoughts on Tennessee basketball so far now that you're part of the basketball team in terms of the broadcasts?
Not for nothing. In the works since 1913. Tennessee now has a winning record against Mercer for the first time ever.
There we
so they're
go.
5-4.
About time.
So don't discount that.
Yep.
Now, what you did better against Mercer that you didn't do against Duke was rebound. Obviously, you're supposed to rebound better
Started
against
to say,
the Bears
not
than you would the
surprisingly.
Blue Devils. But still, that was Rick Barnes told his team, you need to be more physical, you need better rebounding. And they did that. Now, what he is going to be a burr in his saddle until they show that they can do it is protecting the basketball. And so you had 19 turnovers and you had 19 assists. That's not the end of the world, but Mercer had 5 turnovers. So you weren't able to interrupt what they were wanting to do. They couldn't throw it in the ocean. And Tennessee had something to do with that. But you had 19 turnovers. And while it shouldn't all focus on the veteran that you brought in to be your backcourt leader, Jacoby Gillespie right now is probably right there in the sights of Rick Barnes, because this is somebody who is going to be the focal point. Him and Nate Ament are going to be the top 2 targets of every game plan that Tennessee's opponents put together, and he is going to have to deal with it. Not that he didn't in Maryland and not that he didn't in Belmont, but this is going to be the biggest challenge that he's faced. And it's not that he doesn't have the skill set to counteract it. It's just that right now it's been a very lukewarm start for him.
Yeah, and of course Barnes also, he keyed in on his big men in terms of those turnovers. He didn't like seeing the guys inside kick the ball around as much as they did. Nate Ament, the hype around this young man, and look, he's one of the top recruits in the country, so you're going to get that. But I've seen Tennessee get a lot of these one-and-done types before, and they had good years, and they were one-and-done, but it wasn't holy smokes. Dalton Connect was a holy smokes. Chaz Lanier had a really good year, but it wasn't that. And those were transfers. I've seen guys come in here before, and everybody thinks you're going to be the best player since Bernard King, and it's hard to live up to that. Is there too much of an expectation on Nate Ament, at least early in the season?
I think you see exactly why scouts like him as much as they do. You look at his ability to run the floor. You look at the range that he's got. It just hasn't been the most crisp start, because what you saw the other night was you had Duke's number 1 draft pick, so to speak, and Boozer, and then you've got Ament, and you can't help but do the one-to-one comparison. He goes like 26 and 24, and Nate had a good game. It's just that he didn't have that kind of game. But they're not the same player.
Right.
He works out when they're doing the shoot around. He's with the guards. And that's because that's the skill set he has. He can bring the basketball up the floor. He can run it well. And then there was a point in time where he took 2 steps from the line and essentially glided to the rim. And it's really impressive. You can see he is a different type player, a higher level of talent that you start with as a freshman. So I do think that, I think he's feeling a little bit of pressure because he knows that everybody's watching what he does. Yeah. But I also think he got more and more comfortable as Monday's game played out.
Very good. Marlon Walls, Ryan Callahan, you guys were spectacular in that segment. John Wilkerson, very good. What is your role on today's game at 3 o'clock? Analyst today. You can listen to him on the Vol Network. You can catch us tomorrow for the Sports Source. It will be 90 minutes on WATE 6 in Knoxville. If you're watching there, just leave it here until then. And if you're watching us right now at CW Nashville, you can catch the Sports Source tomorrow afternoon on the Sports Source Digital Network. Just go to YouTube and we'll be there. And for those of you who are looking for us on YouTube TV, just look for us on YouTube for the time being. All of our stuff goes up on YouTube, whether you got YouTube TV, whether they've cut a deal with Disney or not. We'll see you next week, right back here on the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff.